Okay, let's see if this is working this time. See if I got any audio coming out. Okay. All right, we do. Awesome. So, what is going on, my specialist SPC here, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Midwest Cantina podcast. Now, obviously, it's been a long time coming for this. For those of you guys who do not know, I originally had this planned about 2 years ago. I brought it all up. But back then, I actually called it the Cantina Talk. But I actually did some digging, and I've actually found out there's actually a YouTube channel that already has that name, Cantina Talk. So I decided to kind of think of my own kind of version of what to call this. So, of course, I live in the Midwest, so that is why I decided to call this the Midwest Cantina. And I decided instead of my original plans making this kind of more like a talk show kind of thing, I figured maybe just doing this podcast style would work a lot better for me. So, basically, this is what this podcast series is going to be about. I do plan on continuing this for quite some time because I just kind of think this is a good way for me to kind of express myself, kind of talk about specific issues and topics within the Star Wars universe franchise, however you want to actually word it. This is going to be more of a Star Wars kind of a podcast deal where I want to just talk about specific subjects and all sorts of stuff like that. So, but probably from time to time, I will probably change it up. I'll probably bring in some guests and we'll talk about some video games, or we'll talk about maybe an anime, or even come in and talk about like a movie or something. So, I kind of just left this title open, just called it episode 1 because I didn't know exactly what to call it. So, if you guys tune back in and you end up watching this again, I probably will have changed the name because I'm just going to kind of talk, in all honesty. I kind of wanted to just give my thoughts on Star Wars as an overall franchise, as just everything I can possibly think of. And unfortunately, too, guys, I will probably be talking about some negative aspects of the franchise, too. And I'm not just talking about the movies and all that kind of stuff. It's just more internal stuff that are probably going to be more of the issues. So, I want to start things off by just kind of giving you guys just a brief little history about Star Wars. Obviously, everybody knows it came out back in 1977, created by none other than George Lucas. Of course, back then it was just called Star Wars. And then, of course, 3 years later, in 81, I believe it was, we got The Empire Strikes Back. This is back when it wasn't called like Star Wars. They just had specific names. So we had Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And, of course, as you guys all know, my favorite film of all time is The Empire Strikes Back. Definitely, to me, probably the best of the entire Star Wars franchise, but that'll also be another topic I will be talking about. I actually have a list written down here of specific topics and stuff I actually want to talk about. And of course, also, guys, from time to time, I am probably going to be bringing on a guest to talk about something specific in the Star Wars universe, franchise, whatever you want to talk about. So, anyway, I know I just got off topic again. That does happen quite a lot, as you guys already know. So, guys, as of late, especially the last few weeks, The hype for The Rise of Skywalker has been pretty high. At least for me, it's been pretty high. And I know for a lot of other diehard Star Wars fans, it's been pretty high as well. Now, there are also obviously a lot of people who are thinking very negatively about the franchise, especially over the last number of years we've been having these movies. Of course, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, soon to be The Rise of Skywalker, Rogue One, and Solo, a Star Wars story. And, it's really sad because I actually have a pretty different opinion about a lot of that kind of stuff. Because I know a lot of people automatically right away, they want to just go straight for the head honchos, blaming them for ruining Star Wars, blaming them for why this franchise is failing so bad. And of course, obviously, it all started with Disney buying Lucasfilm, or exactly, I guess, more George Lucas selling Star Wars, Lucasfilm overall to Disney. And of course, also asking Kathleen Kennedy to be the president of Lucasfilm. Now, of course, obviously, it all started, as I was saying, with The Force Awakens as well. A lot of people just really like to look at it as a complete retreading of A New Hope. While, yes, to a lot of aspects, I do agree with that statement. Of course, obviously, we got the main character who, of course, lives on a desert planet, exactly how it starts off as. We've also, of course, got, the big, I guess we can call it just the big Death Star, Death Machine, whatever you want to call it, in Starkiller Base, which, surprisingly enough, I'm pretty sure from playing Fallen Order, I have a pretty good hunch that that planet is actually Ilum, but we'll talk about that a different time. And of course, a lot of people love the movie. I actually really thought, after really debating and thinking about it, I used to say Rogue One was my favorite of all the Disney movies. I definitely have to say this. Just really thinking about it, thinking about, the experiences, the emotions, everything I had, sitting there watching The Force Awakens, my first Star Wars film in over 10 years. The best of them all. Because I have never been through so many different emotions watching a movie in my entire life. I went from being super happy to super excited to just shocked to sad. I mean, I went through pretty much every and any emotion you can just think of. And also easily to probably the best movie experience I had of any film I've ever seen, period. Now, when it comes to The Force Awakens, yes, as I was saying, I do agree that it is basically a retreading of A New Hope because it does have a lot of similarities. But the reason that J.J. Abrams did that, I feel, is probably to give us something we're very familiar with. To kind of just give us that overall feeling of we're watching a Star Wars movie, because I straight up was watching a Star Wars movie. I was watching something completely different than A New Hope. Well, don't get me wrong, for the longest time, I used to not really enjoy A New Hope. I used to think it was just too slow paced, just not enough action. But I've definitely come to respect the film a lot more over the years since it's obviously the first. And I'm even willingly going to say it too. Even watching Rogue One really gave me a different perspective of the movie, especially if I watch it back to back with Rogue One. To me, it just makes the film so much more enjoyable. And then, of course, we also get to Rogue One, a movie where a lot of people had a lot of problems with the lead characters. Everybody thought that Jyn was just not an interesting character at all. She didn't really have a big arc. The same thing with Cassian Andor, who I'm willingly going to say I did not like, even when he finally realized what he was actually going to do when he was about to kill Galen Erso. For me, they really even maybe opened his eyes, but I still did not like Cassian Andor, period, in that film. A lot of people actually did not like director Krennic, and I actually thought he was a pretty interesting character because he's really just got that head-to-head battle with Tark to basically be, I guess, in the Emperor's good graces, I guess we could say. And, of course, obviously, the Death Star, the biggest selling point of the film. Everything with the Death Star was good, completely action-packed. To me, personally, Chirrut Imwe was the best character in that entire film. He had a great sense of wisdom. He had probably some of the best humor in the film, especially alongside Baze. And not even that, but it's Donnie Yen, and he had some of the best action scenes in the entire film, especially the scene where he takes out the 5 or 6 stormtroopers that he does on Jeddah. And then, of course, you guys, we get into easily the most controversial, the most divisive film in the new Disney era. That, of course, being The Last Jedi, a film that I guess I don't want to say really divided us completely because the fans have always been divided, even way back when the prequels first came out. But, of course, obviously, so many people had a lot of problems with The Last Jedi. They didn't like how Luke was handled. They didn't like how Snoke was handled, which I will willingly say I did not enjoy that either. I really think they could have done so much more. But easily for me, everything from the scene with Yoda returning and talking to Luke and giving him, the big lesson of failure is the greatest teacher, which actually a very inspirational kind of quote. I mean, you really just think about it. I mean, if you fail at something, it gives you a really big lesson in just trying to learn new things and to try to find a way to really make things better for yourself in the future. And of course, obviously, Yoda being my favorite character of all time in Star Wars, I really took that to heart because he's actually taught me a lot of great lessons in my life that I've really taken. But point being, everything from that scene to the end for me was probably the best of that entire film. There were some hit or misses throughout the film. Of course, I know a lot of people didn't like Canto Bite. I wasn't really the biggest fan of it either. And I mean, just some characters were just mishandled, I will admit. I didn't really like how Luke was handled. I don't think Poe was handled very well. Hux, to me, I actually kind of liked Hux in The Force Awakens. I thought he actually had a pretty good future, a pretty good outcome. But then you just get to the next film and everybody's just manhandling him. They're just downing him, beating him down completely. While it is very comedical, which, of course, another problem with The Last Jedi was the fact that there was just too much comedy. But I really just feel like a lot of characters were just not handled the greatest. And then, of course, we get to Solo, a film that I actually had not really any interest when I first heard it was going to be releasing. Of course, obviously, like most of the Star Wars film, the closer and closer it got, the more and more excited I got. I started hearing more of what was potentially going to happen within the film. Then I got that first teaser trailer, and I was hooked. Just how beautiful it looked, the score in it, everything. And then I heard that the guys who did the Into the Spider-Verse film, I can't even remember what their names are right now. I think it's like Lord and Miller or something like that, but they were turning it into more of a comedy, and especially as of late with watching The Last Jedi, I really didn't want too much comedy. For me, watching Solo, funnest Star Wars film made in quite a long time. It definitely had a lot of very good parts. There were obviously even some parts that were a little slow paced, and you just kind of were like, oh, okay, well, it'll pick back up. Then it's just boom, right there in your face again. And of course, we haven't gotten any films or anything. And then recently, just last month, of course, this is taking place right now on December 7th, if you guys are watching this, and if you watch this in the future. But of course, as of the 12th of last month, we got The Mandalorian, which I am so impressed with this show. I am honestly in just shock how each episode just continuously keeps getting better and better and better. Every episode I watch, I just sit there and I'm like, oh, this is easily my new favorite episode. And then the next week's comes out, and then the following week, and then the following week. We're 5 episodes in, and I can't even tell you how many times I've probably sat down and watched each episode already. I've easily watched the first episode at least 6 or 7 times. Because even though, like, the first episode, it's got good pacing, it obviously just starts off a little slow, but it just continuously keeps picking up. And it's almost like that with each episode in a weird way. Except I'd honestly have to say probably the second episode, The Child. I mean, you get a lot of the action in the beginning, and then it's just kind of more storytelling as to why absolutely everything is just kind of happening, and then boom, you get right back into the action again. One second here. So we got Kellen here. Who do you think was at the end of chapter 5? I honestly don't know. I honestly have to sit there and I have to re-watch that episode again because I really don't know. I feel like I'm really hoping it's not somebody we've seen in like a movie. I hope it's just more somebody from the show. The only guy I can think of is the guy Carl Weathers. If you don't know who Carl Weathers is, it's the guy who hires the Mandalorian to go after the child. I guess the black guy, sorry. Not to be racist, but it's the only way I can describe him if you don't actually know who Carl Weathers is. Apollo Creed, for some of you older fans. But I really cannot believe even how a lot of the people in the fandom who have just trashed almost every and anything that Disney has put out here over the last couple of months, or I guess last couple of years, sorry. And of course, guys, now we are on the tread towards the rise of Skywalker. Now, honestly, the biggest thing I'm more nervous about when it comes to the rise of Skywalker, I just feel like I know they're trying to really promote the film. But for me, I really just think they shouldn't be showing as much footage as they actually are right now. Because I just feel like they're just showing us way too much. Because I want to go in, I want to be just surprised at everything I see. I mean, granted, there's a lot of. We got that 30-second clip here from early last week with the jump troopers or whatever you want to call them, I guess. But you got that scene, you got every single commercial they've been showing, the little 30-second clips of just most of it's like the ending stuff, like the stuff with Palpatine. I'm glad they're actually not showing Palpatine because I really want to be anticipated for that probably the most. I want to actually see if it is Palpatine, if maybe it's just somebody new, if it's maybe Snoke disguised as Palpatine trying to seduce Kylo. I mean, I'm just throwing out speculations. I could be 100% wrong. I could be right. I could maybe be halfways in the middle. It's just, I really don't want them to keep showing me stuff. Like, obviously, of course, you see a new snippet and you want to kind of watch the new trailer, see how they're going to hype it up for a lot of other people. And they're just showing too much. And it breaks my heart because this is now the new official ending to the Skywalker saga. And for me, the only way this film is going to probably hopefully exceed expectations, I don't want to go into it like I did with The Last Jedi. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm still going to go in. I'm going to be excited. Because first of all, it's Star Wars. You got to be excited for a Star Wars film. At least for me, being a fan. But I went into The Last Jedi with the high expectations like I did going into The Force Awakens. I was going in as excited as possible. Of course, the film finally started. You get the opening crawl. I was excited for that. And then slowly, like I was very hyped up until, of course, we get to Octo with Luke. And he chucks the lightsaber over his shoulder. Like, my jaw dropped, and I was like, okay. And then, of course, slowly, it started dying down. I want to have the exact same experience, if not a better experience, with The Rise of Skywalker that I have with The Force Awakens. Because, for me, again, this is now the new definitive ending in canon of the Skywalker saga. And unfortunately, the people who don't like the Disney stuff, this is the new canon. If you want to have your own version of canon and you want Return of the Jedi to be your definitive ending to Star Wars, that is fine. Because everybody is entitled to their own opinion. Everybody is entitled to think what they want. But for me, I want this to be Return of the Jedi times 10. Like, I want the final battle between Rey and Kylo. I wanted to exceed the choreography of Anakin versus Obi-Wan and the pure raw emotion that we had with Luke and Darth Vader on the Death Star. And I mean, of course, there's obviously going to be a lot of other reasons because definitively for a lot of people, the third installment of the trilogies are usually the better. I know a lot of people like to say Return of the Jedi is the best Star Wars film. And again, we will talk about that specific topic too in a future podcast. And of course, obviously with Revenge of the Sith, I know a lot of people didn't really enjoy The Phantom Menace. The only good parts for a lot of people were Darth Maul, Attack of the Clones. I know for me, that's my least favorite Star Wars film because I felt more like I was watching a drama, almost like I was watching like Pearl Harbor, like during a big event, but in the middle of it's just a love story. Of course, obviously, though, it develops into the arc of where Anakin has a reason to be seduced to go to the dark side so he can save Padme, keep her alive, yada, yada, yada. But obviously, of course, Revenge of the Sith really brings us into the original trilogy, gives us the reason why all the Jedi are gone. What happened to Yoda and Obi-Wan, where they went, why they went where they did. Of course, obviously, how Anakin actually became the best Sith Lord in the entire franchise. And also, of course, obviously, some of the best lightsaber duels in the entire franchise. Of course, obviously, as I said earlier, we had Obi-Wan versus Vader on Mustafar. And yes, I refer to Anakin as Darth Vader in that part in time because he's so far gone. He's so seduced by the dark side and so much hate. Anakin Skywalker's dead at that point. For me, Anakin Skywalker officially died the second he walked up to the temple and started killing Jedi. Even as soon as he killed Mace Windu in Palpatine's office, that is when Anakin Skywalker officially died. But getting back into The Rise of Skywalker, this definitely needs to exceed everything that has come before it. For me, it's got to come better than The Force Awakens. It's definitely got to be better than The Last Jedi. I'm hoping that JJ can really just tie in a lot of them loose ends and a lot of them just major problems that were there for The Last Jedi. Because that is one of the biggest reasons why nobody wants to go see this film, is because of the bad taste that Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi left for us. I've already said this before. I said this about a year ago. I'm that guy who's kind of in the middle when it comes to The Last Jedi. There are some aspects of it I like, some aspects I don't like. Like I said, everything from when Yoda comes back till the end of the film, I absolutely love. For me personally, there's no problems. Everything in there is basically Star Wars. Of course, obviously, there's a little bit of comedy in there, but I just really. Oh, I guess we got Kellen here saying killed Mace Windu. My bad. I don't know, man, because there's actually a lot of people who actually think that Mace Windu is still alive. Even Sam Jackson's saying it. He's saying that Mace Windu is still alive. I mean, for me, that definitely doing something like that for like Disney Plus, if like they could actually find a way to have Mace Windu live after his hand getting cut off and being electrocuted and thrown out that window. Make that into a Disney Plus show. I would watch it. A lot of people would watch it. I mean, heck, even Sam Jackson, he wants it to happen. He wants there to be a new story arc for Mace Windu. So I guess we'll say killed. But back to the topic at hand. The Rise of Skywalker, I know for the toxic fan base, for sure. For them, they have this high hopes that it's going to fail. And I'm actually going to quote one of the YouTubers that I watch. His name is Dave McCrae. He made a huge video about the toxic fan base, which I will probably also be doing a podcast about that because I really want to give a lot of my thoughts when it comes to like the fan base and what it leads to with Star Wars and all that stuff. But the toxic fan base, people who make videos trashing Disney, trashing all the new films, trashing everything that Kathleen Kennedy and Disney are trying to put out and give us as entertainment. For me, I agree with him. He says they need it to fail. Because if it does not fail, if it like is globally successful, if it is like the highest grossing Star Wars film of all time, they've got hundreds of videos just sitting there on their YouTube channel saying, oh, this is true, that's true. all that kind of stuff. So, but I definitely do think the future of Star Wars, for me personally, is bright. Especially here over the last few weeks, we've been getting a lot of great, awesome, and amazing Star Wars content. I mean, for me as a video gamer, Jedi Fallen Order, I just finished it last weekend, and I'm going to tell you, it's easily one of the best video games I've ever played in my life. There's also, of course, been The Mandalorian. We've had 5 episodes here in the last 3 to 4 weeks since it's been out. And again, globally, with everybody who watches it, within the complete Star Wars community, is extremely successful. For me, because they're apparently not going to be making any more movies until about 2021, 2022, somewhere around there. But it's definitely going to be after Kathleen Kennedy's departure from Lucasfilm, possibly, if she decides to not re-sign or redo her contract. I can't remember if it was earlier this year or last year, she signed another 3-year deal. But for me, now with Disney Plus, the future of Star Wars is honestly very bright. They're already in the process of filming the 2nd season of The Mandalorian, which, if it goes just as good as this season is going, it's going to be a successful show. I just hope they don't go too many seasons. I don't want this to be like a 10-season show like The Walking Dead, because I don't want it to get stale. Because unfortunately, that's my opinion of The Walking Dead right now. I absolutely love the show still. Don't get me wrong. It's one of my favorite shows of all time, but it's definitely gotten slower for me. A lot more slow-paced, kind of like mid-season 2, where they're just all kind of going around the prison. Nothing super exciting's happening. There's not a lot of Walker stuff going on. For me, if The Mandalorian goes that long, the show is ultimately going to end up just losing a lot of fans. Me, if this is just a 5-season show, I'd be fine with that. Because I know a lot of people are speculating that The Mandalorian is also going to be somewhere in The Rise of Skywalker. They're also talking about possibly doing a Mandalorian movie. I don't know if they're going to make that to just a strict movie or a trilogy. I don't know. Just like the talks are, Solo is going to be a trilogy, which I've stated my opinion on that. I don't think that should be a trilogy. I think it should be more of a trilogy of the underworld of Star Wars. There we've gotten the smuggling. I think the next film should honestly be Crimson Dawn. Kind of show us what it's like to actually be a mobster, gangster, higher up, whatever you want to call it. I guess the Godfather in a weird way in the Star Wars universe. Kind of give us a perspective. Obviously, of course, for Crimson Dawn, though, it'd have to be Darth Maul and Kira. And that's honestly even a show, too, that you could honestly make into a Disney Plus show as well. And the 3rd film in the trilogy should be strictly bounty hunters, because especially now after seeing the overall success of The Mandalorian, we can definitely get more perspectives on other bounty hunters. But again, I think that would also just be a better Disney Plus show as well, though, because you could get a lot of different views on different bounty hunters. You can make them an hour-long episode. Even make them longer if you want. Make them little mini movies. Give us perspectives from Greedo. Give us perspective from Dangar, Bosk, IG-88. Boba Fett, a guy who I honestly, personally think is the most overhyped character in all of Star Wars history. But you could either start it off strong like that or end it really strong and make people want to just continue to watch it over and over and over again. Heck, I even thought too, if you wanted to make a bounty hunters movie, have it take place somewhere within episode 5. Have it take place immediately after all these bounty hunters talk with Darth Vader. They're trying to find the Millennium Falcon, because that is the only time on screen for a film that you get to see all those bounty hunters. Of course, obviously, besides Boba Fett. But I mean, IG-88, Dengar, Bosk, all characters that have been in comics. They've even been in the last Battlefront video game from 2015 as DLC heroes. But I mean, you could have them all trying to look for Han. Have them go to different parts of the galaxy trying to find him in the Falcon. I mean, the future of Star Wars, it's so endless. You could tell so many different stories. You could create all these new characters, like right now, The Mandalorian. I keep bringing it up because that's how good it is. It's a completely new, made-up fictional character that we know of as of now. Of course, obviously, you know, we're getting a lot of throwbacks to older characters. Of course, obviously, the child, or as everybody likes to call him, Baby Yoda. Obviously, we all know who that represents. IG-11 from the very first episode. IG-88. Again, another bounty hunter or an assassin droid, whatever you want to call him. There's just endless possibilities, even like Kellen and me were just talking about here a moment ago in the chat. Mace Windu. Because we're going to be having a Kenobi TV show, and I can't remember if it's 4 episodes or 6 episodes, but either way, Ewan McGregor, he even admitted in an interview, he knew he's been playing Obi-Wan for the last 2 to 3 years, they asked him. And the director of the 3rd episode of The Mandalorian is going to be directing the Obi-Wan franchise on Disney+. For a lot of people, obviously, they wanted it to be a film or even have it be a trilogy. Either way, guys, we're getting Obi-Wan Kenobi back. And it's something everybody's been wanting for a very, very long time. Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan. No offense to Sir Alec Guinness. He did an awesome job playing Obi-Wan in the original trilogy. But for me, the standout is definitely Ewan McGregor. He just has this special charisma when it comes to playing Obi-Wan. He can be the serious Jedi Master he needs to be, but he can also be just the smug, smart Alec that he needs to be. The troll master, as a lot of people like to call him. And not even that. I mean, for me, you can make a series on anything, and no matter what, I would watch it. You can make an entire series about droids, like different perspectives of different wars from droids. Even if you wanted to show us everything from episode 1 to episode 9 through the eyes of R2-D2, I'd watch that. Even if you wanted to make a Disney Plus series about Jabba the Hutt, how he goes through, how he does his stuff on Tatooine. I mean, you could even make a show about... I can't even think of another character right here at the top of my head. I mean, you could even make something about, the Wookiees. Heck, even if you wanted to, they could take Jedi Fallen Order and they could spin off of that. They could make a Saw Gerrera show. Show him in the events when we've seen him, because he is in Fallen Order. He is on Kashyyyk, and he's trying to free all the Wookiee slaves. You could have it start there, and you could have it end right before he sees Jin once again in Rogue One. I mean, endless possibilities. I mean, I'm sure anybody here in the chat, I bet you they could easily come up with a Star Wars show. I mean, right there, I just named a few. I even named the Bounty Hunter show from earlier. Heck, you could even turn Crimson Dawn into a show. Even if you wanted to actually make Solo into a trilogy, instead of making it into a trilogy, now make it into a series. It had one good, strong movie, and you could just go off of that. You could make a show about Lando, have Donald Glover come back. That is why I think the future of Star Wars is so bright. I mean, I know the Benioff and Wise guys, they walked away because they ended up getting a better deal from Netflix. So now they're going to make movies over on Netflix instead of making their trilogy here for Star Wars. Right now, too, there's not been much news about the Rian Johnson movies. We don't even know if they're going to be happening anymore, which I know for a lot of people probably wouldn't even bother them. I mean, for me, I've stated it before. If The Last Jedi would have been the very first of Rian Johnson's trilogy, I'd probably have been hooked because I wouldn't have known who any of them characters were at any point throughout that entire movie. I know there are talks of a Kylo Ren spinoff with the kid who plays Mike from Stranger Things and not Eddie. Oh, wow, I'm having a blank. The kid from It. But have him come in and play like a younger version of Kylo Ren. I mean, it's just endless. That is why I think the franchise is just going to continue to get better. I really feel like if they just make more original shows, it'll just be great. I think probably even a lot of people would actually enjoy if the remainder of the Star Wars franchise maybe were just shows. I guess depending on, the topic. Obviously, I would agree with a lot of people. I would really like to see Obi-Wan be more of a movie. And heck, even here, Kellen came up with an awesome idea. This is actually something I'd like to see too. Show about how the Empire fully took over the galaxy. That would definitely be interesting because you could even pawn this off. You could have Darth Vader kind of be a character in there. I mean, you could just show how like the clone troopers just slowly started fading out and how all these different galaxies and all these different planets just had to go under Imperial order. Of course, we know obviously a lot of places do that. And that's actually, I like that. That would actually be a really, really good show. Wow. I like that. That would be cool. But now again, The Rise of Skywalker, it's J.J. Abrams has the complete weight of the world on him. Because unfortunately, if this film fails, I hate to say it, I've been enjoying the sequel trilogy. Again, obviously, controversial when it comes to The Last Jedi again. But ultimately, if this film fails, the entire trilogy is going to fail. Because they just span off of one another. Like different stories, different characters. Of course, obviously, some of the issues I have with the trilogy as a whole, again, a couple of them kind of minor. Maybe some people it won't bother. I didn't like how Phasma was handled. I've strictly said that before in a stream, and I've made a video about it, and I've talked about it enough. She could have just been a lot bigger of a character. I don't like how Hux was handled at all in The Last Jedi. Of course, obviously, I didn't like how Snoke was handled either in The Last Jedi. But if they can either find a way to either retcon or just, improve on them mistakes, I'll be happy. To me, if it's got not a lot of like callbacks, I know obviously we see in the trailers all the time that they're gonna be on the Death Star. That's pretty well out there. And of course, we're going to be seeing Lando again. We're going to be probably returning to old planets, I'm sure. It's just, that's also what worries me about The Rise of Skywalker. Because again, I stated quite a while back here on this stream, they're just showing us too much. I don't want to, I don't want to just speed through like a year later and Rey's got all these new force powers and she doesn't want, we're not informed in it. And for me, the Knights of Ren are easily going to be one of the things I'm most anticipated for. I mean, we saw them all the way back in 2015 in that Force vision that Rey had in The Force Awakens. We all kind of maybe assumed they were going to be in The Last Jedi. They ended up not being in The Last Jedi. Instead, we got the Praetorian Guards. Again, probably one of the best scenes in the entire film. But I really feel like the Knights of Ren are going to play a big part in The Rise of Skywalker. I feel like I hope they're going to play a big role. I'm really hoping that either they're going to be in the midst of that huge battle, or if maybe Rey ends up fighting them off before she fights Kylo. I mean, who knows? Again, there is no complete, utter knowledge of what's going to happen in this film, except for what we see in the trailers. But again, if they don't, they need to stop showing so much footage because I want to go in blind, in all honesty. I don't want to be like, oh, okay, here's the scene where Lando's going to show up, or, oh, here's where I saw this in this trailer, or, oh, there's that specific scene from the first trailer, or whatever. Because when I first saw the very first trailer for The Rise of Skywalker, my jaw was on the floor. I mean, just from that opening scene with Rey sitting there in the middle of that desert, holding the Skywalker lightsaber repaired. And you get that TIE fighter coming towards her, which we can all probably assume is more than likely going to be Kylo. If it's not Kylo, I'd be surprised. But after that, even playing the Leia music and seeing the scene where Daisy Ridley's character Rey is hugging Leia, that is where this film is ultimately going to decide where it is going to be within the hearts of fans. Because that's another thing everybody wants to know. What is going to happen with Leia? Is she going to maybe become one with the Force? Is she going to play a decent role in the film? Is she only going to have one small part in the film? Because, of course, it's been said for the last few years that they're using unused footage from The Force Awakens for Carrie. Because, of course, Carrie passed away, unfortunately, back in 2016, I believe it was. There's so many possibilities of what could happen. We ultimately don't know if maybe Kylo and Rey team back up and they end up fighting the Emperor. Of course, we do know, because hearing his voice throughout every single trailer we've seen so far, you hear Mark Hamill's voice. So somewhere in these films is going to be Luke. I don't know if he's just going to come back. Again, just like Carrie, I don't know if Mark's just going to come back and play a small role, be kind of like the Obi-Wan, just be a Force ghost, tell Rey what she needs to hear, and she just moves on. I don't know if he's going to pop in and out of the film, if he's going to be completely training her throughout the entirety of the film. I mean, And of course, are we going to get other characters back throughout this film? Are we going to see old characters? Because supposedly we're supposed to see guys like Wedge Antilles is supposed to make his return. Star Wars ultimately is the culmination of George Lucas's vision of what he wanted to see. I know he's also come in, and that's another big thing too. A lot of people are saying that George had to come back and fix Episode 9. George hasn't come back and fixed anything. He hasn't come back and he hasn't filmed a lot of new scenes. He has been in contact with Abrams throughout most of the filming. He wants inputs from George because, again, this ultimately, no matter what, even though it's owned by Disney, is ultimately still George's. It's his vision. It's his story. And, of course, obviously, JJ wants to make this the best of them all. Because JJ is tying 9 different films together. He has to tie in the prequel trilogies. So Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. He's got to tie in the original trilogy, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And, of course, obviously the previous 2 films, The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. He has to tie everything together. He needs to give them ultimately the biggest send-off that anybody's ever seen. As I said, it needs to ultimately be bigger than Return of the Jedi. And I know for a lot of people that is going to be extremely difficult because Return of the Jedi is easily one of the top Star Wars films ever made. For a lot of people, it's their favorites. For a lot of people, too, especially a lot of the toxic fans, it's their true ending to the franchise, and that is fine. For me, The Rise of Skywalker is now going to be the end of my Star Wars. Especially right now, of course, the Skywalker saga. We're still going to be getting other films. We're going to be getting TV shows. We still got old films prior. We're forever going to have the original trilogy. The original trilogy is what ultimately started everything. It's what ultimately started all the movies, video games, comics, novels, toys, everything. Every and anything Star Wars that we have gotten has come from the original trilogy. Since the very first Star Wars came out back in 1977, 42 years ago. And you're even getting websites making custom lightsabers for people. Granted, yeah, they're hundreds of dollars. We've got Galaxy's Edge, a brand new theme park for Star Wars fans, taking place in a city or town called Batuu, which we are going to be seeing in The Rise of Skywalker. You can go there. You can make your own droid. You can make your own lightsaber. You can go to a cantina. You can fly the Millennium Falcon. That is all just because of one film that George Lucas made 42 years ago. It's ultimately what's brought a lot of people together. Heck, for me, Star Wars is what made me make this channel. Because there was a period in time about, I want to say, early to mid 2006 till about, I want to say, June of 2014. So about 8 years, I became more of a casual Star Wars fan. Of course, I grew up watching the prequel trilogies. I can still remember going to the theaters with my dad to see The Phantom Menace, to see Attack of the Clones, and to see Revenge of the Sith. Those were the films I grew up with. My uncle, the biggest reason I'm so obsessed with this franchise. My uncle grew up and with my dad. My dad's he's more of a casual Star Wars fan. They grew up with the original trilogy. There are young kids right now. I've got young cousins. I've got young nephews, young nieces. They're growing up with the sequel trilogy. Ultimately, no matter what, one vision from George Lucas making the original Star Wars film 42 years ago is what started everything. Star Wars is what's made me meet a lot of awesome people in my life. I have coworkers I can sit there and talk with. I could talk with them for hours about Star Wars. Heck, Star Wars video games. It's what's made me meet a lot of my friends I have now, like Kellen, like Jordan. And even, unfortunately, The Last Jedi has made me meet some new people too, like my friend B-Level Star Wars. I went onto one of his videos, a 1 year later video about The Last Jedi, and me and him just started talking about just anything we could think of. Star Wars plays a big part in my life. And I mean a big part. I know a lot of people, I have family members, I'm willing to say it, they make fun of me because I'm just so obsessed with this franchise. They just keep asking me, oh, are you a child? Are you this? Are you that? And when I actually tell them why I'm so obsessed, they don't really give me as much grief anymore. Because this franchise is my way of getting close with my uncle, who, if some of you guys don't know, he passed away a good 6-7 years before I was even born. But he was obsessed with Star Wars. He loved the original trilogy. I was able to get a lot of stuff from him after he passed away, growing up, becoming a huge fan of this franchise. I can post stuff on my Facebook. I get a lot of likes now. Before, like I said, at least a few years ago, I used to get family members making fun of me because of the stuff I was posting. There was a good period from like day to day for like 2 months straight. They kept releasing so many days till Rogue One or so many days till The Last Jedi. And I literally posted every single day. If it wasn't for this franchise, I honestly, I don't know where I'd honestly be in life. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it gives me something to talk about. This is actually something I'm passionate about. Right now, I'm a very small channel on YouTube. I only have 70 subscribers. If I stay small channel until I decide to either stop doing this or I just stop running out of ideas or whatever, I'll still have Star Wars. It's what's made me do a lot of things in my life. I mean, even as I said before, there have been so many different lessons I've learned from Yoda that I actually live by on my day-to-day life. As I said earlier, failure is the greatest teacher. I live by that a lot. And I even pass some of that knowledge on to some people in life that I know where they feel like they want to just give up. Even the iconic do or do not, there is no try. I say that to so many people because I know so many people who want to just give up. They don't care. They don't want to try nothing. They just want to be like, okay, well, I'll try. Like, no, just do it or don't do it. Don't try it. Just go for it. It really can just bring a lot of people together. And for me, again, it's a big part of my life. I'm unfortunately not lucky enough, unfortunately, Not trying to be salty or anything, but there are YouTubers, the Stupendous Wave, probably the biggest channel of them all, Star Wars Theory, Star Wars HQ. Their life is literally Star Wars. All they do, they make videos all day long about this franchise. Me, yeah. I'm sure some people probably get sick of me posting nothing but Star Wars content on here. I'm sure some people in my personal life probably get tired of me constantly talking about Star Wars. But unfortunately, it's not going to change anything. If there are things on my channel people don't like, that's fine. They don't have to subscribe. They don't have to like me. And this is my channel. I'm going to do what I'm passionate about and what I enjoy doing. Talking about Star Wars is what I am passionate about, and it is what I love to talk about. Hence, right here in the middle of the screen right now, my logo. It is basically in the shape of the new trilogy. The top part would be Star, the bottom one would be Wars, and the middle one would be whatever the name of the movie was. I'm going to pass this stuff on to my kid someday. And I hope he or she will pass it on to their kid, and it'll just be going generation to generation to generation. I've got 2 young nephews who are just getting into Star Wars. Even my friend, she keeps asking me what they should watch first. I told her if you're going to get them into Star Wars, you need to sit them down and watch the original trilogy first. You need to watch Star Wars. You need to watch Empire, and then you need to watch Return of the Jedi. Kellen, I will fight them. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Again, as I was just saying there, like right there, stuff like that's another thing that makes me want to keep going on here, because people enjoy what I actually have to say and what I am passionate about. Yeah, anyway, my 2 nephews are getting into it. I've got friends I have casual friends who are into Star Wars. Like, I guess they're casual fans, like I was for a good while. I have coworkers who are fanatics of Star Wars. Like, all they want to do is talk about it with me all the time. Because I guess I don't want to say I have like a vast knowledge of Star Wars. I know what I know, and I'm still willing to learn new things. I watch videos every day learning something I haven't learned. My friend B-Level Star Wars, he's slowly teaching me stuff about the expanded universe. My plan is to have him here on a podcast pretty soon to talk about and explain more about the expanded universe, because I want to know more stories as well. Because to me, unfortunately, even the toxic fans, I'm going to say this, I still respect the fact if you like Star Wars. To that amount, I will respect you. I just don't like it when people want to just bash this new stuff we're getting. It's Star Wars, man. I mean, unfortunately, even though I'm literally just been talking about it, it's a franchise. Every single franchise is going to have their own version of toxic fans. I don't need to name any because I'm sure a lot of people have probably seen them. And nothing's going to change that. I love every and anything Star Wars. I'm enjoying the new stuff so much. One day I even got so bored. I watched all the new Disney movies. I watched all 4 of the new Disney movies in one day. Star Wars is going to be a part of my life. That's not changing. I hope it doesn't change for any of you guys if you're passionate about Star Wars. Even if you're just a casual fan too, don't ever let that change. All from one vision of one man and this whole open world that we have now. But guys, I think I have rambled on quite enough. Thank you for everybody who joined me for my very first Midwest Cantina podcast. If you guys are at all interested in being a guest on here, if you actually have a topic you want to talk about, like I said at the beginning, this will be mostly Star Wars talk. But if there is like a video game you want to discuss about, or if there's even a movie you want to discuss about, or something, any kind of topic, I'm open to any kind of topic here on this. So, again, thank you to everybody who showed up. Like always, like, comment, subscribe. Love you guys. And may the force be with us all.